How are we doing, KU basketball fans? This is your host, Nick Rondeau, here to talk a little bit about Jayhawks basketball on the channel Jayhawks Daily. And let's dive right into it. And let's dive into something I'm very interested in, and that's to see how Taja visit goes this weekend. And yes, Taja, like we mentioned before, son of NBA legend Trevor. And the comparisons kind of continue past just sharing the last name and obviously it being your father. He's 6'9". People are saying 6'10" even without shoes. Incredible length, of a wingspan. And they say the defense is almost identical to see just how natural of a defender he is, how, engaged he is with, ranging from one all the way through the five, defending all positions. So I think that's what we always knew as Trevor Ariza in the NBA. But additionally, they're saying his offensive potential is through the roof. They're saying his ceiling is potentially significantly higher than what his dad's was. And yes, again, his dad was a different prospect. He only spent 1 year at UCLA, getting drafted in the second round, but he had an 18-year career in the NBA. So fair to say that the genes run pretty well in the family. And, we can only hope that Taj is going to be making a move towards KU. And I think we've seen a lot of positive signs over this recruiting cycle regarding Taj's recruitment. And, he's number 14 ranked in the 247 Sports poll, a consensus 5-star, I believe, from Bellflower, California. And, we mentioned that with Tony Bland the other day. He's playing at St. John Bosco's high school right now, but 2 years under Tony Bland at St. Bernard High School. I don't think it's a coincidence that the week after or within the week when we hired Tony Bland, that was announced, Taj confirmed his visit with KU for this upcoming weekend. So I don't think that's a coincidence. I see more correlation there. But again, I don't want to speak too soon. He's got plenty of, big offers out there. He's obviously a highly touted prospect, and I think people have known this for a while. He's pretty been, I would say, shooting up the rankings, but been a top 25 prospect in everyone's consensus rankings for years now since he was coming out of middle school. So I think this is going to be a big ticket item that I'm hoping KU can get their hands on. And Taj is definitely looking at KU very seriously. But he's already visited USC. He's visited Oregon. There's been rumored potential visits to Kentucky, which is tough to turn down. Potentially Arkansas and Bama as well. But, it's news that he canceled his UNC trip. So scratch one blue blood off for us. But, he's also coming off an interesting summer. He did miss some time, missed the Peach Jam Tour and the AA circuit. So he was looking to have a big showcase summer, honestly. And, I think just a small minor injury kind of took it away from him. And, he cares more about putting on for this high school season, which he's anticipated to take probably Gatorade Player of the Year potentially in California. And could make a real impact on, for St. John's Bosco. But he also does have a teammate at St. John's Bosco High School that also played at St. Bernard High School a couple of years ago, and that would be Christian Collins, number 4 recruit in the nation, who Kansas does have an offer out to. He's not at a scheduled visit at this point, but who knows? Maybe Christian Collins could be in the work, getting another top 5 recruit even. But I think Taja would be a great domino to get, and I'm hoping KU can really put something on for this weekend because, you got to really sell him if you're going to get, a caliber player of an Ariza in the building. But I also don't look at Trevor's alma mater as a big competition as UCLA, considering he doesn't have an offer from them and he spent only a year. But USC and Oregon, I would say, are the big ones to walk out for because USC is 11 miles from where he lives, so you never know. But moving on, we want to talk about Ethan Taylor, and myself specifically, love a good big man for KU. I love a talented big man, but I love a big man that works hard, who can run down the floor as a rim runner, great with their hands, and has offensive potential. And I could have just been perfectly describing Ethan Taylor, but that's essentially what he is. A perfect rim runner, has got great speed, unbelievable with his hands, and has plenty of offensive potential. So I'm very happy that we're putting in a significant push for him. He's a Shawnee, Kansas native, plays, at Link Academy in Missouri, so very nearby. He's a number 22 player in the nation. some are contested saying number one center for this recruiting class. And he did just recently complete his visit with KU. And, haven't had too much of a word about how that went, but considering we're still in the running and, he hasn't scratched us off a list, which is what a lot of people do after some visits, I think this is a good sign for us because, he's a hyper talented player. Like I said, he's still got to fill out a little bit. He's 7-footer, which is ideal, 7'3" wingspan, but he's got to fill out. He's got a good frame. That's kind of what, you expect when a younger prospect like him is going to come in. But he's just so massive, and he's got very simple post moves, and he's got an amazing first step. I mean, the way he can get from one side of the rim to the other while controlling his body and contorting it to finish around the rim is truly magnificent. But, we're going to see bigger competition, and that's what we're saying when he needs to fill out is we're going to see some bigger guys in the Big 12, and let alone in college basketball. And Ethan Taylor will have to fill out a little bit, but he did. He does have a couple other visits out there. He visited Oklahoma, Indiana. He, like I said, he had that official with KU already, but he already has been to KU a couple of times on some unofficial visits back in June and August. So maybe there's a lot of familiarity there, and he does have a fellow teammate that has also visited us before. But I think this is a great play for KU to really pursue because we really could use a big man guaranteed in the lineup for next year with Flory really trending towards that NBA prospect. I mean, he's just too much for, I think, an NBA scout to not say we can develop this guy into a star in the league. I mean, the guy is very similar, not in height-wise, but to Kaman Malawak last year from Duke. I mean, they're just unbelievable shot blockers that – and Flory is much better, I would say, at dribbling and putting the ball on the floor. But again, we'll see how it goes with Flory for next year. But I think I'd really love to scratch one off the list and get a big center. And Ethan Taylor is the big center that we'd love. But he might have to play a little drop coverage earlier. I don't think his feet will be quite ready to stick with any Big 12 guard or anything along those lines. But I think he's got a real chance to come to KU and become a Jayhawk because people would love that. Especially me, but we'll see if it plays out. But next, I want to talk a little bit about Overtime Elite, and people are saying is Overtime Elite actually the OTE Jayhawks? And that quote's actually directly from a couple of the freshmen on the team this year, Cole Rosario, Samus Calderon, and Bryson Tiller, who all came from the Overtime Elite program, and high school basketball, college basketball, the landscape has all changed in the recent years. And with Overtime Elite, it's not just a high school. It's, even Bill Self kind of said it, and he spoke it in a glowing fashion. He said that, essentially it's academics and it's ball. The way they do it overseas in the academies, people go to school, they can work out with a trainer 8 hours a day if they choose. They can live on their own kind of, get their nutrition, their strength training, their skill development. In our standard high school, that's difficult to do. You're, in classes 24/7. You're doing this. You have a couple hours of practice after school. But, they work your schedule around these athletes. And it can be used for a lot of different, reasonings. You could be going to narrow down your schools. You could be going to Overtime Elite to get exposure, to find those Division I schools that may have not been looking before because Overtime Elite's finally getting a name for itself. And it really is committed to the individual. They're not, and I say a pipeline, I'm never going to vouch for the fact that, Kansas has, is doing anything in an unsavory fashion to get these players. They've made it very clear, the head of player services at Overtime Elite made it very clear they're all about the player. They have a relationship with people from Kansas because Kansas is there every week. In regular recruiting, guidelines, they get 20 hours a week to start to be there, and then it will slow down and it will tamper down as the official recruiting gets. But they've said there's gone nothing overboard. They've just been there every week because they know a lot of these guys, they're dedicated and committed to developing their game at this level and the next. And, Overtime Elite has made it kind of clear that they're kind of shifting their model. They're not just aiming to go professional. They know that college is now an incredible path professionally, and it helps that you're also compensated. So I think it's very crucial that, we're kind of that one of these first teams that are really taking advantage of these legal recruiting visits to a high school circuit like them. And I just think it makes sense. We're seeing guys that are, super talented. We're going to see what having three players, and Bryson, Samuelson, Cole, who Cole even reclassified to jump up with these guys. We're going to see what the benefit is of them having so much time together. I mean, imagine those three on the court at the same time. Will we see that often this year? I wouldn't say so. That'd be a difficult order to have, but they're going to have a lot of familiarity, and it's just even said that the player of services had said that KU is by far the most common recruiting individuals at their facilities than any other Big 12 school. I love to hear that from our program. It means we're getting guys out there, and we're getting guys that we know we can develop. And it also might help that there is another player at Overtime Elite right now, and that would be Taylon Kinney, and that would be the number one point guard who we are dying to get. We're still waiting for that. We'll talk about him later this week, but September 26th, 28th cannot come any bigger, and we are hoping so much that Taylon Kinney can scratch that commitment, and we'll have Bill Self's first to 2026. But he's another player at Overtime Elite, and it's just they even hosted a combine earlier in September, that had about 75 college coaches and 29 NBA teams in attendance. Bill Self, and a number of his staff were also in that group, but this is clearly this wave of college basketball, of development basketball, all of that, it's not leaving. It's only ramping up. And Bill Self and his staff are getting on the right side of history, and they're active. They're not just going for the transfer portal. They're going for this wave of, young individuals who will come up for, it could only just be a year. It's stated, even Darren Peterson's recruiting Taylon Kinney, bring him up again, said, come hoop here for 10 months and then go to the league. And the thing with Darren Peterson is he's committed. He loves the Jayhawks. He's made it very clear. He's trying to recruit guys when he knows he's not even going to be here next year. He just knows this is a pathway. Bill Self is a prophet when it comes to turning these guys into huge NBA prospects. So why not just give them a chance? So I think, the OT Jayhawks, it's got a good ring to it, but, they're only one of two schools that had three people in their recruiting class for this year, and the other one is Georgia. So it makes sense as it's, located in Atlanta, Georgia. So we'll see how this develops in the future years. I hope it will, get something nice in the early fruition, which would be getting Taylon Kinney here soon, but we'll see. And, there are plenty of other people that are going to be going through that program, and I love how Bill Self and his guys are doing it the right way, the legal way, and just showing up. And, the visits will calm down as the season gets going, but why not start now and start out hot, be there as much as you can, as talk with these guys as much as they can, and just get to know their perspective as humans, because sometimes at the end of the day we lose that. But last up, we're just going to talk a little bit about a 2027 recruit, because why not? Because he visited last weekend, and Javon Bardwell has been skyrocketing up the national rankings. He was over a couple years ago at about 60 or 70. He's up to now in the top 20 for 247 Sports. He's a 5-star prospect according to 247 Sports. He's at about 6'7" now, I think. And, watching this guy's tape, it's very interesting to see how, seeing is from freshman to now, he's still growing. It's unbelievable. But, that's the thing when you're looking at these guys. Let's try to cross one off the list. Let's get a 2027 recruit early, and it'd be a hyper-talented one to get him at this point. He's going to be that, point kind of forward role. He's 6'7", still kind of growing, could be more, but it's impressive to see, because he was at that, smaller height, how talented he is with his handle. I mean, it's unbelievable. His dribble penetration. He's got crisp passing, which is, oh my God, I love that from a big man who can pass well. But it's something to get the offense going. He's a slasher. He drives to the rim super well. Great athlete. And, he's going to have to get some confidence in the jumper, but that's everybody. He's growing into his body and whatever it'll be as a true, 6'7", maybe a 6'8" power forward. But he had that handle. That stayed there for sure. And let's see if the shooting can, stay with it. He'll get a jumper by the time, but he's got plenty of time. He's number 2 player from Arizona. He's got plenty of offers already, over 10 Division I offers. But Kansas was first. His first visit, not his first offer, but his first visit. He's got big offers from Texas, USC, Texas Tech, Louisville. We're seeing these guys are competing for all the same guys, 2026, 2027. It does not matter. The one thing we've got going for us is we are a blue blood. We've got Bill Self. How can they turn us down? I don't know, but I think Javon Bardwell could be a great guy to get, And there's also something to speak about the New York guards, Harlem guards. They've had a great history over the last 20 years of the league or college basketball for even. But you see these guys that some of them they stay in St. John's. It looks like Pitino's not exactly pushing that envelope for a guy like him when he's made it very clear he wants to recruit in New York. But Bill Self's made it even more clear. You're coming here first because we would love to have you for next year. Why would you not? You can't just think about 2025 season and how it's going to turn out with Darren Peterson. You can't just think about 2026 and if we'll get Talon Kinney, if we'll get Ethan Taylor, Taja Reza. You got to think about 2027 too. That's how crazy it is. It's a general manager role, He's delegating in such great ways to have everyone here, but Bill Self was with him at the visit, obviously, and this is what I love to see from my Kansas Jayhawks. This is what we should all love to see from them because they're starting off on the right foot. I've got excellent hopes for this year. I'm so pumped that we've got a guy in DP who's going to have a great season, going to win that Big 12 Conference Player of the Year. He's going to join Kevin Durant. I feel it, but I just want another great run, another Big 12 Conference championship because that's what we expect. Sorry, Bill, that's what you've done. You spoiled us so much, and let's have a run in March, man. I am so excited when it comes to March. Yes, I'm excited for the first game more, but when March comes, that's when we're about to lock in. So I just want to thank you guys for listening again. I appreciate you, liking, subscribing, commenting, anything like that. But thank you guys. Go Jayhawks, rock chalk, baby.